Coming into the season, naturally, there are some questions that you're looking to be answered over the course of the season. And on today's episode, we're going to talk about how we got answers to a couple of those questions. Some new ones popped up, and the Chicago Bulls have probably built a young core that they can build with going forward. We're going to talk about all that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And hey, I hate to tell y'all this, right? Like, we're just going to start off. We're going to rip the Band-Aid right on off. Like, the Bulls won the Alex Caruso trade. I miss Alex Caruso, too. I love Alex Caruso, and I think Alex Caruso was the type of player that Chicago Bulls fans always are endeared towards, right? Like Alex Caruso is just that guy. When you look at the way that he plays, his play style, the fact that he leaves it all out on the court, all those type of things. Alex Caruso is a great player. Right now, he's not, top in the league in any one stat or anything like that, but he's the type of guy that definitely raises not only the floor, but the ceiling of your team by the way that he plays unselfishly, the defense that he plays with, all those type of things. But get this, the Chicago Bulls got, if I told you coming into this season that the Chicago Bulls could get for Alex Caruso somebody who, A, can create more shots than Alex Caruso has generated more points off assists just this season than what Alex Caruso scored his entirety of his Chicago Bulls tenure. Oh, and by the way, total rebounds as well. If I told you that we can get a player back for Alex Caruso that in one season could have just a little bit under 200 less rebounds than what Alex Caruso did in 3 seasons with the Chicago Bulls, would you want that player, right? When we talk about the steals, right up there as far as the steals per game as well that Alex Caruso got. If I told you those things, and you told me you would want, now keep in mind, I didn't even talk about the points that Josh Giddey himself is scoring. I just talked about how he creates for others. Yes, Alex Caruso was a great player, and he had a huge impact for the Chicago Bulls team. But the fact of the matter is, the Bulls' direction was changing, and Josh Giddey is part. He's not just a part of that change. He's a reason why. He may be the current of the change, meaning that he's a driving force in the change that the Chicago Bulls are having here, not only in their play style stylistically, but also in maximizing the other players around them. Alex Caruso's great, and I love Alex Caruso, but Josh Giddey has not only impacted more areas for the Chicago Bulls, he continues to show day in and day out that, oh, by the way, he's still an improving player at 22 years old, period, right? And that's the thing that it comes down to, and that's the part that's sad about all this for some Bulls fans, that they, because they're so focused on their narrative-driven bullshit, that they can acknowledge when you see a 22-year-old player creating in the manner in which that Josh Giddey has and growing in the manner that Josh Giddey has, right? Josh Giddey is shooting 38% from 3 this season on 3.9 three-point attempts, which is the tied for the most of his career, and he's having the highest three-point shooting percentage of his career. This is why when you bet on young players, you hope that they can develop. And get this, I understand the Bulls have not been the best on development over the course of basically since under AK, right? And so because of that, there's always going to be a shroud of doubt over can the Bulls really, especially when you're looking at a player that has to develop, there's always going to be some doubt there. But Josh Giddey is answering those questions, my guy. Like, again, that stat is a stat that blew my mind entirely. The fact that Josh Giddey has almost created for others as many points as Alex Caruso scored. Now, Alex Caruso is not a scorer, right? So, there's that part. A lot of what Alex Caruso did, admittedly, is kind of hard to quantify into the counting stats, but it is still a glaring one that you look at it and you're just like, wow, that's crazy, right? And that's the way that Josh Giddey's impacting the game of basketball right now. And it's great to see. It's amazing to see, to be quite honest. Josh Giddey is creating 17.1 points per game off assist, right? While he's also being a pretty damn scorer here, not only just over the stretch, but over the course of the season, he's gotten better each and every month scoring-wise. And oh, by the way, let's talk about his backcourt mate in Coby White. A player that has, 12, 13 straight games of over 20 points, which is almost a quarter of a season. If Coby White reaches 20 straight games of over 20 points, then that's not just a small sample size. Like that's a whole entire section of a season, right? And that's not even counting what he did in the other parts of the season as well, where he had some good stretches. He had a downturn. Of course, Coby White is averaging the most points per game that he ever has in his career at 20.3. He's the 37th leading overall scorer. When you talk about the fact of the majority of the season, he had to share a backcourt and duties with Zach, not a backcourt. Zach was playing the three with Josh Giddey. With Zach LaVine, and the fact that he's a player that's still figuring it out as well. Coby White is still a player that at 25 years old, right, is just now hitting what should be his peak, his prime. And, again, I've said before that I don't know how much more Coby's realistically going to add to his game. That's up to him to show that. But just a refinement of the game that he's already shown already puts him at a certain level that you look at and you have to, right? You have to take accountability for that. The Bulls have to find their value in what they have here, and the value is tremendous when you start looking at backcourts in the NBA. Josh Giddey and Coby White have been the second best backcourt in the game of basketball. Since the All-Star break. And again, we're almost into April, so it's no longer like typically when you hear somebody say after the All-Star break, I think people like to think, the All-Star break was just here. We're well over a month since that, and being consistent in doing it as well, right? And Josh Giddey, who came back from injury and hit the ground running right away, it's crazy, right? When you look at since the All-Star break, the only backcourt to score more points than Coby White and Josh Giddey is Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves. That's it. They're averaging 50.1 points per game. Coby White and Josh Giddey averaging 49.4 points per game as a backcourt. We're not even going to get it. They're averaging more than John Moran and Desmond Bane, averaging more than Stephon Castle and Devin Vassell, right? They're averaging more than a lot of those backcourts, any backcourt that you can put up. They're averaging more than that, other than, like I said, Luka and Austin Reeves. That is the level of what you have. And for people that don't recognize that, I get it. Pessimism is part of being a Bulls fan. It's there. It's always going to be there. You're always going to have that doubt because, unfortunately, the Bulls have earned the right to be pessimistic over what they're doing. They have earned that with the way and the decisions that they've made with this franchise. You cannot take away from that. I understand that. But when you add into this, right, as well, rookie Matas Buzelis, who is figuring it the hell out, like, I get it that the scoring output has been down. The shooting has been down. But when you look at Matas Buzelis, and you look at, and again, this is where you can tell the difference between people who are watching games and people who are watching the box score. Matas is now taking players off the dribble at a rate that let me just be clear, he didn't do it at all before the All-Star break. You very rarely saw Matas take players off the dribble. Right now you're seeing the step back. You're seeing the handles that he has. And that's something that also in his draft profile made him so dangerous, is the fact that at his size, speed, and length, his ability to dribble, the quick first step, and paired with his hops and athleticism, I tell you what, Matas Buzelis' second year, everybody's going to be looking out, but the Bulls have to make sure that they're capitalizing off that. More on that here in a second. The Bulls' backcourt and Josh Giddey and Coby White is not just a flash in the pan. It's not just something you can look at anymore and just say, it's cool. But, yeah, there are still some buts. There are always going to be buts. With every NBA team, is still they're winning at the highest level, right? But we came into the season saying that we wanted to see what we have in our young core. And now that the fact that we're seeing that, it's like so many people, such a section of Bulls fans are busy trying to find ways that they can tear that down and say that that's not what we're seeing. That is absolutely what we're seeing. And then for some people, right, even the Coby haters, the Josh haters, and the people in between, right, let me tell you this. If you feel like you have to knock Coby to talk positively about Giddey, which some of y'all are doing, reality A1, I see you. If you feel like you have to knock Josh Giddey to talk about positively about Coby, Jared Williams, I see you doing it in the chat, right? You're stupid. Because the thing that makes this special is the fact that they are doing this together. When you watch this, the ebbs and flows, both these guys are realizing, hey, this is when Coby's hot. Let me take a little bit of backseat. I'm going to focus on rebounding. I'm going to focus on creating. And, oh, by the way, if I get a mismatch and I can take this play off the dribble, I'm about to get to the free throw line, right? Coby the same way. Coby realized at a point yesterday where he was taking those heat check shots and they started not going in. And what did he say? All right, bet. about to start to get free throw line. Josh Giddey starting to cook. Let me make sure I help him do that, right? In the sense of, let me be open for these shots. Let me make sure I'm moving off the ball, right? Let me make sure I'm playing off of him and helping create that space so he can have this lane to go right in there, barrel in, turn his back, get the free throw and the bucket sometimes. And that's a level of intellect that, again, people who want to watch the game for narratives aren't necessarily seeing, right? Because you're too busy either just watching the box score or trying to find your narrative driven rather than just realizing that the thing that makes this special is that these two young players are doing it at the same time and they're figuring out how to do it together while the other is still cooking. That's the special part about all this. And people are so busy caught up in their shit that they're missing this, right? The Bulls have quietly built something that is a right now a scrappy core. That's all I'm giving them right now, right? Got to see how they do at the start of the season. Let's see what they add to this team as well, but they're starting to do that. And one of the biggest parts of that, like I said, is in Matas Buzelis. I talked about his ability that he's creating off the dribble, how his athleticism. The shooting isn't really there yet. He's shooting 32% on the season, which I want to see better from him. So that's from three. He's shooting 44% from the field so far on the season. But I think it's this, right? The fact that Matas has not shied away from taking that shot at all. Not to knock P. Will. I'm just talking about the realness of it. You've seen times, right? And P. Will, who's been in that starting power forward position and who has also shot the ball. I mean, he's averaged 40%, but there's been times where he hasn't shot it as good. You start seeing P. Will not wanting to take those shots anymore, right? He passes. Matas is still willing to take those shots. He's not back down from taking those shots. He's learning every single day. And he also is showing you that he wants the best defensive assignments because he wants to grow as a player on that defensive side of the ball. The thing is with this, right? Matas Buzelis, I don't want his trajectory to be like Lauri Markkanen. And I'm not comparing them as players, but more so, Lauri had a great first 2 years here in Chicago. And the Bulls never were really in a place after that to capitalize on that. They didn't really cultivate that talent. Now, some of that was also Lauri Markkanen and his injuries, which played a part in it. Some also was that Lauri Markkanen, where he was a really good defender at one point in time, as far as like block shots and things like that, kind of fell off of that. But, we want to see the sustained part of it. Now, the difference is that Matas has a completely different mindset, completely different. And you love to see that from a player like Matas Buzelis. And his mindset is really what I think makes me have more faith in him than some of the other young prospects that the Bulls have had at times, because he has the mindset that everything is a learning opportunity for him, right? He does not, while he is cocky, right? And I think all really good basketball players are cocky to a degree, but at the same time, like, he also, that cockiness comes with the desire to be the best at what he can do. I have no doubts that Matas really does, in his mind, think that he can be the best player in the league at some point in time. And I have no doubt that he wants to be the best player in the league at some point in time. We'll see how closely we can get that. But that mindset and that mentality, that's what's going to make him special. And so now that the Bulls have 4 days off, right? They came out of this road trip with the Bulls came out of this West Coast trip with more wins than losses. And you got to love to see it. And a big part of what's been doing it, not completely, right? Because Trey Jones have definitely had a part of that. Jalen Terry's played his role. Hell, Patrick Williams has had some really good games. Seeing Jalen Smith get back out there last night after not really being in the rotation for a while and him play the manner in which he did, that's all really good things, right? But when you look at it, the Bulls came out of this 6-game road trip 4-2. 4-2. With wins over the Rockets, which is a really good basketball team, the Sacramento Kings, which is, per record, still a solid team, the Los Angeles Lakers, and the Denver Nuggets. Yeah, Denver was missing Jokic. You can't take away from that. But Jamal Murray's been on an absolute heater. Now, they go back home, and for the finish out this week, they got the Lakers and the Dallas Mavericks. We'll see what the Bulls can do there before next week, starting off against the OKC Thunder in OKC, which is going to be crazy. And then after that, the Bulls have 7 games left against Toronto, Portland, Charlotte, Cleveland, Miami, Washington, and Philly. It's a really favorable schedule for the remaining part of the way for the Chicago Bulls, and they're playing really, really tough. And I love to see this. And they have now, or they're laying the groundwork for a foundation. And I tell you what, if Matas, Giddey, Coby, all these guys really lay out a foundation, I tell you what, Coby's playing himself to the point to where you're either going to have to pay him or somebody's going to have to give you a lot in a trade for Coby White. I know there's still those people that want to see Coby White traded. I, for one, with this backcourt playing the way that it is, I want to keep that together. unless a Trey Johnson falls in your lap in the draft. There's not really a conversation that I want to have with moving on from Coby White because A, the Bulls will have more than enough money to do it, have more than enough money to make it happen, and to be still in a good financial place. But at the same time, these guys are showing that they can be a duo. You add in Matas Buzelis to that, and you add in whoever we draft in this year's draft. I tell you what, the Bulls can go from at the start of the season having a mighty questionable young core that we were just really trying to see who these guys can be to now a young core that you're starting to see, all right, what can we build with these guys together? And make no mistake about it, that mindset switch, that mentality switch is a very big part in that as well. And we'll see what the Bulls can do with that. All right, let's get into the voicemails today. I want to get into two that was hanging out there. One is this first one. This one's from Reginald.
Hey, this is Reginald from Columbus, Georgia. And I've just been thinking about the situation with Vucevic. And as we all know, Vucevic is probably going to be on the team by this time next season. So when I look at what type of replacement you can get for Vuce, and whatever deal you're going to have to make is probably going to be for another center. And there aren't really a whole lot of centers on the free agency, so I was thinking it'll probably be someone that has to be able to run with Giddey, you know, who could be a lob threat, but also who can be a defender and give you valuable minutes. And the main guy I was thinking about was Daniel Gafford with Dallas. I know we had him before. I know we traded him to Washington. But even though there's probably a few other guys out there who the Bulls can get, not just in the draft, but on other teams, I think for the moment, he would be a better fit simply because when you look at all the things I said, he can shot block. He could alter shot just by his presence, alter shot, even though it doesn't really show up on the box score a lot. This is the type of center the Bulls need. Because what we're seeing with Zach Collins right now, like you said, he's only slightly more athletic than Vucevic, but you can tell the difference by how they play. So would you make a move of, like, let's say, Gafford and Marshall from Dallas for Vooch and Jabbar Carter? And I throw Jabbar Carter in because if he's not in a deal with Vooch, you're not trading him. I just don't see any way to move him without, you know, getting him off there's no trade partner for him. Unless you're planning on giving up draft picks, and I don't think the Bulls are going to do that. So what's your opinion on that? Thanks.
I love that you pointed out the type of player, right? And I think that's what Zach Collins has done more than anything is to show that, hey, if you get an athletic guy with these players that we already have, again, Zach Collins isn't even that athletic, but a guy that gives effort on both sides of the ball, a guy that just goes out there and put in work. That's why when people like knock Derek Queen, it's like I think that Derek Queen can come in and be a better version of Zach Collins. Absolutely. He has the footwork. He has the post moves. The mid-range is just a little bit shaky. He's starting to show the ability that he can hit a three as well. Derek Queen, with the motor that he has, the mentality that he has, I would love to see him out there with like Coby, Matas, and Derek Queen out there from like the edge that they have. Make no mistake about it, Josh Giddey. I think we got to give Josh Giddey more credit too for him being a little bit more of a petty player than what people realize. But at the same time, that's a young core that I can get behind. Now, I'm not saying that I still love Asa Newell. I actually like him more than Derek Queen. Of course, Kaman Malawak, if they can get that guy in here as well. But I think the Bulls are in a position, as it stands right now, right? They have the 11th best odds that they are in a position to add a big that makes some sense. If it's not a big, JT Toppin, Rashard Fleming, right? They still have those guys as well that make some sense for the Bulls to be a long-term front court mate, with Matas Buzelis. So, the Bulls have a lot at their disposal. I'm going to have a lot of fun breaking down and doing my draft analysis this year because the Bulls really have slowly but surely, in a very different way, put themselves in the same spot that the Chicago Bears are in, right? As far as their ability to really go kind of best available if they want to. Now, best available within a couple of positions, but they have a lot of flexibility on what they can take in the draft, and we'll see what they do with that. But Reggie, for the last part of what you said, though, the part on Nikola Vucevic, right? I do think that Vuce is going to be moved this offseason. I don't know if you're getting Daniel Gafford for Nikola Vucevic, though. I don't think Vuce's value is that high, right? I think that's part of the reason the Bulls didn't move him at the trade deadline, is that his value is just not that high, right? I think there's going to be a little bit of a difficulty to move Vuce and get somebody like a Gafford back. I think you're probably looking at picks at that point in time, maybe matching salary. We'll see. I think the trade that you works out financially. I just don't know if that's what the Dallas Mavericks would buy on. But I do think that Vuce, you do need to move him this offseason, especially if you draft a center. It's you got to at that point in time, and we'll see what happens there. All right, let's get into the next one, man. This one's from Shay.
What's up, guys? It's Shay. Look, I know this may sound crazy, but I believe AK should find a way to bring back Josh Giddey and Coby White and Ayo Dosunmu and Trey Jones. Look, and not necessarily that part is crazy, but I feel like this young core can do something together, and you gotta look at it. All of them are young guys. Now look, I'm not saying that we necessarily a playoff team just yet, but I feel like if we get that center in the draft, we could do something come next year. But we gotta get that right player in the draft, not a guard, a center, because I feel like if we do that, and next year we come out with the center, and not only that, we sign Trey Jones and Coby White and Ayo Dosunmu and Josh Giddey, and you might see this Bulls team get back right again because hey man, when you look at what they're doing, hey, the only place for them to go is up. Now I'm still thinking that still let the NBA dictate on what Josh Giddey, Trey Jones, and Coby White. Still let the NBA free agent market decide what you get for Giddey and Trey Jones. But I feel like you need to bring those guys back along with Coby White and Ayo Dosunmu, because hey, this team, I ain't gonna say it's something special, but when you have young guys that fight, hey, this is an exciting team to watch. AK will be a fool to let any piece go. That is young, might I add. But anyway, tell me what you think. Peace.
Keeping Josh Giddey, Coby White, Ayo Dosunmu, and Trey Jones. It's going to be difficult, and not just difficult because of a lack of desire, but I think you got to look at a roster makeup. The Bulls only have so many open roster spots this offseason. Now, if they do make a trade where they're not taking, somebody backwards, taking somebody that can be cut a non-guaranteed contract, whatever it may be, if they do something like that, then maybe. And here's the thing. I think it's a maybe either way. But again, I don't think it's a thing that for me, it's not an if they should or the style or if you can balance it. It's more so the roster, right? You let's just assume Josh Giddey's getting re-signed. You only have 2 open roster spots. One of those at least is going to your first round pick. So outside of that, right, you have a second round pick as well. Are they signing a 2-way? Bringing back Trey Jones? Those are things, right? So, we'll see. I think that there's still a world in which Trey Jones could come back to Chicago. I'm just not willing to bet yet that that's a for sure thing. But we'll see. We'll see what happens there. But all right, guys, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys are following us at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullscentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that's thanks to you lovely and beautiful people. And like we like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.